Have you ever heard of dark MAGA and the dark MAGA mafia? Probably not. But by the end of this video, you'll know exactly who they are and what they're up to. Well, let's take a look at the dark MAGA mafia and who these people are. Many of them probably look familiar to you, or you've probably heard their names before. And that's because they used to be known as the PayPal mafia. And now they are the dark MAGA mafia. Starting with Peter Thiel. Peter Thiel was one of PayPal's CEOs, as was Elon Musk. And Peter Thiel, I term the godfather of the dark MAGA mafia. He was the first investor of Mark Zuckerberg, and that's probably where you heard his name before. And then there's Elon Musk, who was also part of the PayPal mafia, and he needs no introduction. And then below on this third line are the captains. It's these top three rows that comprise of the dark MAGA mafia and other individuals that used to be associated with PayPal. If you're not too familiar with the PayPal mafia, in 2007, that term was coined from a very famous magazine cover. And these individuals very much embraced the term mafia. They wanted to be known as a bunch of technology gangsters. And it's these people who comprise of the dark MAGA mafia. And the reason I'm referring to them as the dark MAGA mafia is because of the black MAGA hats that you often see Elon Musk wearing. He's not signifying his allegiance to MAGA. He's signaling that there is a dark MAGA mafia behind the scenes. And in case you're not too familiar with the PayPal mafia, take a look at this hub and you can see the amount of influence that these people and these individuals had over Silicon Valley. And the reason you see Peter Thiel as the godfather, because Peter Thiel has been very active in political contributions for over a decade. He's also the elder statesman of this group. He is the mentor to Mark Zuckerberg and even in many ways to Elon Musk and many of these other captains. What you need to know about these individuals in the dark MAGA mafia, as they always identified themselves in politics as libertarians. And if you're unfamiliar with libertarianism, it essentially advocates for minimal government involvement, limited regulations, and a small military, amongst other factors. And all of these individuals have always identified as libertarians. Now, the problem with libertarianism, it's not practical. And there's a reason there is no libertarian government in the world, because libertarianism only serves the rich and the powerful and corporations. It is not a practical political philosophy. Now, over the past decade, these people have begun to identify themselves with something much more sinister. And you'll see that in the top left-hand corner. An individual named Curtis Yarvin. He is an anti-democratic philosopher, and he created the philosophy called dark entitlement. And it's this philosophy that these individuals have started to embrace over the past decade. And essentially what it advocates for is a corporate-run monarchy that's run by a CEO. Essentially, what it embraces is few entitled individuals or corporations that run the economy and run government led by a CEO. And that is nothing more than code for a dictator or an authoritarian. The dark MAGA mafia also needs other individuals to help them achieve their goals, which we'll talk about in a moment. Some of those people are useful idiots. And these are very powerful useful idiots, such as Donald Trump, Mark Zuckerberg, and the MAGA movement as a whole. And on the bottom row, you're going to see its soldiers. And its soldiers come in three types. They come in special interest groups, such as the Claremont Institute and the Heritage Foundation, which are the architects of Project 2025, amongst many other special interest groups, such as the NRA and others. And then you also have media soldiers, people like Tucker Carlson or Ben Shapiro or Charlie Kirk and many, many other right-wing influencers that you'll see on social media. And then there are the political soldiers such as Blake Master and J.D. Vance. Now that you understand the overview of the dark MAGA mafia, let's talk about their strategy. Their strategy is to convince a large segment of society that democracy is a failed experiment and that they are the only ones that can fix government. All right, let's move on to the plan or the blueprint for them taking control of government. The first part of the plan has been underway for more than a decade, and that's leveraging disinformation and to stoke culture wars. And it's these useful idiots and the soldiers that become very helpful. And over the past decade, you've been witnessing this from people like Donald Trump, who's the most divisive political figure in history. And then you have Mark Zuckerberg with his control over Facebook and Instagram. He could have certainly shut down culture wars and disinformation on its platforms, but because of his relationship to Peter Thiel, he had no reason to do so. And when he sat in front of Congress numerous times and said it's impossible to stop disinformation, he was straight up lying. And then, of course, you have MAGA, and then special interest groups such as the Claremont Institute, the NRA, the Heritage Foundation that are convincing MAGA, trying to scare MAGA and make them mad about these culture wars. And then, of course, you have all the social media influencers on the right wing that continue to amplify the talking points and the culture wars to divide us. Now, stage two of the plan is underway right now, and you're seeing it every day. And that's to tear down government agencies to show government is unfixable, with the ultimate goal for them to privatize parts of government agencies and award those contracts to their friends and allies. And it's in this area they probably didn't realize how effective they would actually be with utilizing or leveraging Donald Trump. And that's where $288 million comes into play. At the end of Donald Trump's campaign, Elon Musk donated in total $288 million to Donald Trump's campaign and was able to curry many favors from Donald Trump. And his free reign and access to government agencies is clearly a result of him buying Donald Trump's loyalty and trust. But that's not the ultimate goal of the plan. The plan really concludes in stage three. Remember, Donald Trump is just a useful idiot, and he's not part of this organization, but that's where the political soldiers come into play, and particularly this guy, J.D. Vance. Did you ever wonder, J.D. Vance, how he became vice president after in 2016 being highly critical of Donald Trump and calling him America's Nazi, but yet somehow he ends up as the vice president nominee? And the reason is really simple, is the dark MAGA mafia and all these individuals made a hard push to get JD Vance nominated and onto the ticket with Donald Trump. It's these individuals that convinced Donald Trump to nominate JD Vance as his vice president. And that's their ultimate goal, is to install their own political soldiers. J.D. Vance is a believer in this anti-democratic philosophy, following Curtis Yarvin's philosophy for many years now. And this is the ultimate goal. If Donald Trump were to die in office, J.D. Vance would assume power. And if Donald Trump completes his term, J.D. Vance is in prime position to be elected as the potential next president of the United States. So in short, getting J.D. Vance into power is their ultimate goal, and then they could complete their takeover of government with even more precision. Now let me give you my final judgment and expose the illusion and the lies. Is the MAGA Mafia is nothing more than a group of psychopaths and sociopaths. And all the individuals and organizations on this chart are domestic terrorists, and they're engaging in a coup from the inside. What's most crazy is these people believe they're the only ones to fix government, but it's the same system that enabled them to become billionaires in the first place. Now, let me be clear, it's not all billionaires. It's just a small network of billionaires and their supporters, and it goes beyond these individuals right here, some of which include Larry Ellison, Mark Andreessen, the Adelson family, and several others. But again, it's not all billionaires. For example, there are hundreds of billionaires that have signed on that they need to be taxed at a higher rate. It's those billionaires that understood that the taxation system is unfair, and they understand that the same system that enabled to become billionaires needs to be supported and not torn down. Now, how about Curtis Yarvin and the dark entitlement philosophy? Does it have any merit? Again, if you remember from earlier, he's advocating for a corporate run monarchy that's run by a CEO. First, you need to understand that American democracy is the greatest form of government in the history of human civilization. And now they believe that it's a failed experiment. The dark MAGA mafia is convincing society, and MAGA in particular, that democracy, the Constitution, and even freedom itself is obsolete and that we now need overlords. But remember, I said that everyone on this chart are domestic terrorists? There's one exception, and that's the MAGA movement overall. MAGA is just being convinced to be mad and scared. And it's these individuals that are manipulating the people in the MAGA movement through culture wars and disinformation that they're the only ones that can fix government. While there are many domestic terrorists inside of MAGA, such as the Proud Boys and the people that participated in January 6th and many others, most of MAGA are decent individuals who want to support America who are being manipulated, so much so that they're voting against their best interests. If you think how crazy it is that people who supported the Constitution and freedom itself are now beginning to support that democracy is failed and that we need an authoritarian, nothing could be further from the truth. There's only one question left. Are we going to let them succeed in their strategy and their plan? Let's not let it happen. Thanks for watching. There is so much more to come. Please share this video far and wide and subscribe and like to Poke America. I'll see you soon.